Good morning. A year ago, no one knew what a Donald Trump presidency would look like, how he would behave, how the rest of us would respond, what mission and values he would embody. Today, we have some answers. We now know that the Oval Office cannot reshape a man who does not believe in constitutional democracy. We now know that the Republican Party will not cross a president who controls their base, regardless of what he says or does. But we also know something else, that the American people will not back down under attacks on our Constitution, on our core rights and principles, and on our identity as Americans. We will organize, we will march, we will vote to protect what truly makes this country great. We now know that this partisan fight has become a fierce battle for the soul of America. And we, the people, have to win this battle. And we don't just have to win, we have to run the table. Millions of us, tens of millions of us, have to take on the cause of justice, equality, and dignity as our own. We have to speak out loudly and bravely as we spoke out against the Republican effort to strip health care coverage from families, as we spoke out in defiance of the Muslim ban in airport terminals across the country, because that is where the true fight will take place. All across America, in our cities, our towns, our suburbs, everywhere. Who are we? What do we stand for? What kind of future are we trying to create? We have taken a disastrous turn. And now we need to get back on a path to a just and prosperous future. Last year, the people did speak. In Virginia, in New Jersey, in Alabama, in races from Oklahoma to Florida. But as encouraging as that was, we have no room to go backwards. There can be no arrogance. There can be no overconfidence. There can only be a determination to do what must be done. So the question for us is, how can we sustain our energy and translate it into a victory this November? Like countless of other Americans, including most of the people in this room, I've spent months wondering how I can make the biggest differential impact. As I've said repeatedly, I am willing to do whatever it takes to help save our country. And I believe that the most important task for me, the task which I feel called to do, is organizing, excuse me. It's probably my wife telling me exactly what task I am called to do. The task which I feel called to do is organizing and mobilizing America's voters. They have got to be the most powerful force in our politics, and their participation alone can compel a government that truly serves the public interest. That is the struggle of our time. So I'm not going to run for office in 2018. That's not where I can make the biggest difference. 2018 is going to be a fierce contest for me and for everyone on our team. 2018 is going to be a straightforward debate between two radically different visions of America. I'm going to spend it rallying Americans behind our vision, a just, inclusive, prosperous America. My fight is not just in California. My fight is in removing Donald Trump from office and from power. And that starts with taking the House back in 2018. I have 3 announcements today about how we will make that happen. First, I'm putting $30 million behind Next Gen America's youth organizing program to unleash the full political power of young voters. They're now the largest block of eligible voters in America, capable of swinging elections on their own, and they are horrified by what's happening in Washington, D.C. They're anxious for change. They are ready to participate in that change. They are ready to be the change. Donald Trump's election awoke a sleeping giant in our political discourse, a youth voting bloc that will be the X factor in a wave to remaking our understanding of what it is to be an American. And this is not just a gleam in our eye. The work we've done in Virginia since 2014 gives us a clear model for how to turn this generation's anxiety into action. In 2017 alone, our team worked on college campuses and online to add over 20,000 young Virginia voters to the rolls. We helped generate historic youth turnout, and we boosted Ralph Northam to a larger margin of victory than Barack Obama had in Virginia in 2012. Next Gen will be expanding on this model in 10 states across Arizona, California, Florida, Iowa, Michigan, Nevada, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Wisconsin. Will be registering, organizing, and mobilizing young people to elect progressives up and down the land. And we're going to send the likes of Paul Ryan, Darrell Issa, and Barbara Comstock back home. But we also know that we need to activate all voters to win in November. Every voter needs to know that we hear them and are committed to serving their interests. I have had countless conversations with Americans all over the country. I wanted to learn how the people of Michigan think about Washington, D.C., how the people of Arizona think about healthcare, how the people in New Hampshire feel about the opioid epidemic. They all face different challenges, but what unites them is frustration with what's going on in Washington, D.C., concern that those in power are recklessly gambling our future to serve corporate bottom lines, and that there's no strong countervailing voice, fear of what this lawless president is doing to our country, and an eagerness to hold him accountable for his actions. That brings me to my second announcement. We will be redoubling our effort with the Need to Impeach campaign. We're seeing this campaign resonate with voters in every state because they want to hear impeachment in the national debate. They are absolutely right to demand this. By my count, Donald Trump has committed at least 8 impeachable offenses. He's trampling on the rule of law and risking nuclear conflict. He is a clear and present danger to the institutions of our democracy and to the safety of the American people. Yet a Republican Congress will not cross him. They refuse to perform their constitutional duty of oversight. Letting these offenses go without consequence would set a dangerous precedent. Millions of Americans know this president is unfit for office. They need to know that a Democratic Congress would do what is morally and urgently necessary for the health of our democracy. This is one of the most important issues of the day. That's why the campaign will continue, and we will continue building our digital army, which is already over 4 million and counting. This is far more than just a petition. And that brings me to my final announcement. We will be turning Need to Impeach into a vehicle for an unprecedented engagement effort. We're going to amplify the voices of our supporters. We're going to activate against this president. And we're going to demand our representatives stand with us. We will reestablish a direct line of communication between the people and their members of Congress and make clear who our government answers to. That begins this week with constituents delivering some required reading directly to members' offices in Washington and in district offices, copies of Fire and Fury. And there will be far more efforts to come. We know this makes some of our friends and allies in this city uncomfortable. It turns out we can read. We know that the so-called pundits argue that we have to choose between talking about impeachment and talking about policy. But we believe this is a false choice. The fact is the two are fundamentally intertwined. This Republican Congress is willing to aid and abet a dangerous president because holding him accountable would put their agenda at risk. And that agenda is all about serving the wealthy at the expense of the many. It's making policy to suit the biggest donors. It's a democracy where every dollar is treated equally, but not every person. But we know America is so much more than Wall Street or Silicon Valley or any corporate boardroom in between. It's bigger than this president, the Congress, and all of Washington, D.C. We know that America is the people and families out there who make up our communities, who keep us safe, who make our economy hum, those who will create our future, and those who equip them with the knowledge to dream up and lead us into that future. It's the people who keep us healthy, who guide us through recovery, and who discover new frontiers and alert us to dangers ahead. When they are free to prosper, America prospers. When we invest in and support them, we all win. But when they're abandoned to bolster corporate bottom lines, America struggles. Langston Hughes said, "Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly." America is a dream of justice and freedom and opportunity. 2018 is a battle for the soul of that country. That's why I'm all in for changing who runs this city. So our work at Need to Impeach will continue alongside Next Gen America's. And across the board, our operating principle is clear. We need a government that is actually for the people. And we're only going to get it if the people of America are organized and demand it. In 10 months, God willing, the people of America are going to send a wave across the nation. This tide will wash away the stain of the Trump administration. And it will not recede until America lives up to its founding creed. Until we guarantee equal treatment, dignity, and respect to every American. Thank you. Leah, are you running the question and answer?
Hi, everyone. I am Aaliyah Cavalier. I'm the Communications Director for Next Gen America. We're going to take some Q&A. Samantha and Eric are going to help run mics. So if you have a question, raise your hand. Ginger.
I wanted to ask you, we are starting to see speculation about 2020. You said you're not running for 2018. There's names coming up. Could you support someone like an Oprah, who we saw a lot of speculation about today? Are you looking at candidates for 2020, and what do you see on that horizon?
So let me say, I did see I watched Oprah's speech this morning on my phone, and it was a fantastic speech. But we are all in through November 6th, 2018. We feel as if this is a must-win situation for us, and we are not focused on anything starting with November 7, 2018. We feel as if what we're describing is going to be a sprint to that day, with every day being important, and we really don't have the ability to know what's going to happen after that, because we don't know, and no one in this room knows what's going to happen on November 6, 2018. What we know is the world will be different the next morning, and we'll plan for that when the time comes.
If you could state your name and your outlet, please. Sure.
I'm with CTV, Canadian Television. My name is Joy Malbin. The world is watching Donald Trump, especially Canadians are watching Donald Trump.
Especially Canadians.
Yes. I could go on and on. But I'd like to know, I mean, I've seen some of your commercials, the need to impeach. There's now this national conversation about the fitness of the president, his mental fitness. He's even tweeting about it. What is your strategy? I mean, I understand that impeaching a president is very difficult. A petition with names is very difficult. What is your strategy? How do you go about doing something like this?
Well, we started our campaign officially on October 20th when we ran our first ad. We felt at that point that the criteria for impeachment were unquestionably met, and we actually have a 2-hour presentation that we put on the web with constitutional scholars to show that it's a lay-down case. But we also felt that over time, every single day, there would be increasing events and information that would bolster our case. So did we know that there was going to be a book called Fire and Fury that would come out last Friday? Why, no, we did not. But we knew that every day things would happen when people would realize, wow, they're right, and we're going to join them. So the first thing I'd say is we believe that every day our case will be stronger. And secondly, we're empowering what already existed in the United States. We're not convincing anybody. People are signing up. Over 4 million people have signed our petition because they already knew that. So what we're trying to do is enable the voice of the people to be organized and heard so that elected officials don't have any choice but to do what's right. And what we're seeing is that case. When we originally started, I think there were 2 members of Congress who were talking about impeachment. They held a vote about a month ago. 58 members of Congress voted for it. What we're seeing is, and frankly, this whole weekend and this morning have been devoted to the question of the president's fitness. What we're seeing is events adding to the fact. Now, do we know exactly how it will play out? Why, no, we don't. But we also know that removing the president of the United States is not something to be done in secret. It's something where the American people have to be involved and informed and demand it. This is an important thing, and that's what our strategy is: to engage, involve, inform, and empower the voice of the American people to get their will done. Excuse me, Frederick.
Can you talk a little bit more about the budget? I mean, you say $30 million for the House. You previously doubled down on the amount of money you were going to spend on the need to impeach campaign. Do you intend to spend more money on that beyond the $20 million? What's going to be your budget here, and how does it divide impeachment versus House?
So I know that everybody loves numbers, so we try and be as helpful as possible. I think it's also a fair statement for anyone who's been involved in any kind of political campaign or political effort to know that the world will definitely change from our expectations, whatever those expectations are. So we said $30 million for the youth mobilizing effort because we actually have planned it, and that's something where we can tell beforehand what it costs to have people in those states, what it costs to have specific organizers, and you can't do a grassroots campaign. If 2 weeks before November 6, 2018, we all decide we're going to do a grassroots campaign, we can't do it because it's an organizational effort, it's a hiring effort, it's a training effort, it takes time, and you can plan it. I said that we were doubling down on need to impeach in this speech. That's something which is more like it's a campaign as opposed to an organization. So exactly, I do think that we will do that in terms of dollars as well. But exactly how that plays out will depend on some of the events that happen in the interim. But we know that that's a campaign that in order to prosecute it, you've got to be activating voice, and that's not free. So I'm confident, if you're asking about numbers, that we'll spend as much again as we spent on that.
Don Wilson, Leader Strategies. Tom, thank you for focusing on impeachment instead of the 25th Amendment. One of the things that those of us who work with organizations here are worried about, is that people do not appreciate how difficult the 25th Amendment is. And I hope that some of your media will explain some of that you have to get the vice president to lead the cabinet, then a 2/3 vote of the House instead of a majority, et cetera. So I hope your media will really, hammer that, because I think it's a huge distraction and, in fact, a very dangerous point, unless you have an epic mental health event, which you might. But anyway, thank you for focusing the way you focused, and I hope you will even do more explaining it.
Well, let me just make a quick comment on that, not direct. We are really focused on removing this president. And I think what we've seen since we started our campaign is a variety of calls for his removal in different ways, including the 25th Amendment. I mean, we had some senators calling for him to resign based on sexual harassment charges. So what we've really seen is an increasing awareness that one way or the other, we need to get this man out of office for the safety of our democracy and for the safety of the American people.
Thank you very much for all that you're doing. I'm not with the media.
How scary.
Fortunately, my name is Catherine Koch, and I'm one of your adherents. Thanks. I just wanted to ask, you referred earlier to 8 impeachable. Could you please delineate that, some of them at least, and put them up front more on your website? That'd be helpful for those
So
of
I
us.
think that's a
Thanks.
great point, because what we did, Catherine, was we had a 2-hour press conference with constitutional law professors going through the 8 impeachable offenses, which are led by obstruction of justice, the emoluments clause, treatment of the free press. But they are, I mean, I'm not even a lawyer, they're constitutional law professors. And it's actually on our website. I checked to make sure this morning. And if you have 2 hours and missed going to law school, which I also did, it's really a lay down. It's an open and shut case, but it's extremely interesting if you want to go into the details, because they go through it soup to nuts, and honestly, it's very impressive.
I think we have time for one more. Nope, you.
Thank you. I'm Ben Camisar with The Hill. So you mentioned Paul Ryan and Darrell Issa, some of the targets that you have here. Will you be getting involved with boosting specific Democratic candidates? And will that support hinge on whether or not they support the impeachment charge that you guys are making?
So when you talk about grassroots organizing, by definition, it's talking about policy issues and getting people engaged, talking about the issues that they care most about. It's about engaging them and then trying to encourage participation at the polls. If they go to the polls, then hopefully they're voting from the top of the ballot to the bottom of the ballot, including everybody who's on there. So in terms of pushing specific Democrats, we're going to be in there pushing young people to turn out, informing them, trying to encourage them to be as aware as possible and engaged, and that their vote really counts. So what was the I apologize, there was a second.
It was just, are you looking at supporting specific candidates, and if you were, is that going to hinge?
Is there a litmus test about? So we are not going to have a litmus test about impeachment. What we are going to do is try to talk directly to the American people, so that people running for office know for a fact that the American people are behind impeaching this president, particularly an overwhelming number of Democrats, the majority of independents, and increasing number of Republicans. I think what we're trying to do is enable the voice of the American people to demand action from their representatives, as opposed to making it some kind of litmus test. We want to work through and organize the voice and power of the people.
Right, I think we're finished, but thank you all.
Thank you guys very much for coming.